there's an old saying that says that past is often prelude. And so I need to give you a little past to talk about how it's a prelude for where we're going forward. So I came to this church in June of 2013, and Session graciously allowed us to contract with a consultant to work on helping us kind of better articulate who we are and what we feel like God is calling us to do. And through that process, we identified core values, which you can find articulated in various places, but we also identified a mission statement. And that mission statement is actually on the wall in the back there. It's loving Christ Jesus, boldly proclaiming truth, serving our neighbor, and growing God's kingdom. That's what we feel like God is calling this particular church to do. Aspects of that every church are called to do, but that's our articulation of how we feel like God is calling us, what he's calling us to do. And that information was really, really helpful to us as we did two really significant things over the next few years after that. One was changing denominations. If we wanted to do that, we felt like we needed to be in a like-minded tribe that would help us do that. And that mission statement helped us do that. Similarly, we had some staff turnover and change. And so having that statement helped us build a new staffing model. And it did a lot of great work for us in those ways. But eventually, we kind of got to the spot where we're like, what would it look like? And about a year and a half ago, more like 2.5 years ago, a team was developed to go, what would it look like if we actually were loving Christ Jesus, boldly proclaiming truth, and serving our neighbor and growing God's kingdom? What would that look like? And we developed a vision statement. And the vision statement is up there as well. It would look like a vibrant, growing church of spirit-empowered disciples mobilized to engage our neighbors with Jesus. And I love that statement. There's a lot to it, and we worked on, ego always talks about flourishing, so we got that vibrant, growing language in there, that we want to be disciples, that we want to be mobilized. We have that neighbor's word in there. We have all that in there. But then, so that's a great statement. That's what it looks like. Pragmatically today, how would we get there? How would we become that church? Okay, we know what we're supposed to do. We know what it would look like. How do we actually get it done? Session went through a process about 15 months ago that we wrapped it up. That it was like, I think the way to get that done is we need to prioritize 3 things. And Session went through this process and agreed that what we need to prioritize is the work of evangelism, the work of discipleship, and the work of leveraging this facility that God has graciously given us. That's what's going to allow us to get that work done. So that's great. Now we know what our strategic priorities are. Exactly how are we going to do evangelism, discipleship, and use this facility? And so back in April of last year, Session appointed Mal Lane, who you heard from earlier, to develop a team to kind of collect the ideas that would be bigger than 1 year, that would be bigger than one budget, that would be bigger than one committee, and go, hey, how can we actually do evangelism, discipleship, and leverage our facilities? And through, we collected, I think, over 30 big ideas. We sifted them down into 9 that we thought really met that criteria. And we then proposed a ranking of those 9 to Session. And back in November, December, Session considered that over a couple of meetings and really went, yeah, we think the best ideas, because we can't do everything, but the things we can get done, the best ideas for us would be to, and these are not in necessarily a order or let alone a timeline, but we kind of roughly said 4 things that we wanted to do. And the first 2 are connected. We wanted to develop a master facility plan. And that relates very closely to completing everything around the courtyard, which includes the building on the other side of the sanctuary in the midst of that. So those were kind of the first 2. And then the second one was we're only 1 generation away from extinction. And so we really want to, and we make vows when we baptize kids. We make vows when we receive new families with kids that we're going to grow them up in the Lord. So we really want to prioritize putting stuff into into children. And so then we also said that what we really want to do is the best way to do evangelism, all the research shows this is church planting. I got a really disturbing statistic from my friend and mentor, Jim Singleton, a few weeks ago when I got to meet with him. He said that the research shows that 18% of churches in the United States are going to close in the next 5 years, never to reopen their doors. So yeah, we're planting like 3,000 churches a year nationwide, but 5,000 a year plus are closing. The number of churches per population is declining. And we know that the best thing to reach new people are new churches. And so we really wanted to do church planting. And so Session actually prayerfully considered this, wrangled over it, had a lot of prayer and debate, and ultimately they said, yeah, we want to do this. And so then the question became, how do we do it? And how we did it is we agreed that Session should develop a number of teams. We're going to have one team that's commissioned, that's going to be led by Marshall Price, that's going to really focus in on how do we develop a master facility plan. And that completes the courtyard and gets that stuff done. And when we start talking about HVAC, and you talk about space needs and what does it mean for children, and how do we actually do that? There's a lot of moving pieces. And so Marshall's going to chair that team, and his team has to bring a recommendation session by May. Secondly, we appointed a team. And again, these are not in any particular order. Brad's probably going crazy because I'm not following the order. He's doing well. I can't look over my shoulder and talk.
That's all right.
It's all good.
That's right.
By the way, if you haven't, these sheets on your table are helping also do what I'm talking about. Then we appointed a second team that's going to be co-chaired by Catherine Hendrickson and Rachel Lim. They're still putting their team together that's going to really focus on how do we grow our children's ministry. And then I get really excited about this. Session said we're not going to just appoint a task force or a short-term team. We're going to appoint a standing committee. And we're going to give it annual funding so that we participate, and that's a key word, participate, because we don't know that we can lift it all on our own, a church every 5 years. We want to be part of planting a church every 5 years. And so they're putting together their team on all of that. And I get really excited about this stuff because I think God's on the move. And now we have a plan and a strategy to go with what God is saying we should do and how we should get it done. But I can be excited about it. It doesn't matter much. We need you excited about it. And we need 4 things from you. Very particular. And the first and most important one of those things is we need your prayer. Right? Unless the Lord builds the house, the laborers labor in vain. We have it in our prayer page every week where we say that an Oswald Chambers quote, that prayer doesn't fit us for the greater work. It is the greater work. None of this happens unless you pray. And so Session also appointed a team that's very specifically working to mobilize and galvanize your prayers as a church. And Lila Gardner and Gloria Price are heading up that work, and they're going to organize events and call you to pray, and we're going to have a lot of prayer happening here to get this stuff done. But the next things we need are also very familiar. We need your time. You heard it from Mike. Some of you go, oh, I'm just too busy. Don't be too busy. Make time for what matters. This matters. It's what I think God's calling us as a church to do, and you're part of the church. We're going to need your talent. Some of you have very specific gifts. Some of you are gifted as prayer warriors. Some of you are gifted with finances. Some of you are gifted in evangelism. Some of you are really good with kids. And we need you to put your time in on this stuff. I've heard this way too often, but I want to rebuke it a little bit. You haven't finished your term. If you're an older adult and your kids are launched, your term isn't done. You made a promise when those kids were baptized. And I tell you, every time I do the baptism, I'm going to hold you to it. So I'm holding you to it. You've got to help raise them up in the Lord. That's a must do in the midst of this. And yeah, we're going to need your treasure. God has really graced us in terms of being able to fund a regular budget. You guys are a huge part of that. But if we're going to do this, we're going to need to raise additional funds to do some of the stuff. I mean, I hear really scary numbers. And they're only scary, though, until I realize who you are and, more importantly, who God is. So, we need your treasure in the midst of all of this. But that's kind of where we're going. That's what we're working on for the next 5 years. And I think God's on the move, and I want you on board. I think the job of your leaders is to discern where God is going and say he's going that way, and then come with us. So we've done that work. We think this is where God's going, and this is how he's going. And we want you to come on board.